interest group. So the Vredefort interest group's sort of been ongoing. We've got a couple of hiccups along the way, but now we're trying to gather ourselves again. And Richard's got a couple of speakers lined up. So I'll hand over to Richard if you can introduce the two speakers.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris, and also thank the participants for in this event today. Very briefly, as you've gathered, this initiative was started by a group called the Geoheritage Tourism Destinations Group in South Africa, in collaboration with the Geological Society. And the idea behind it all is to get some idea of the players in the Vredefort Dome story, with particular reference to the World Heritage Site and other aspects, which are not always too clear to everyone. And what we find is that there are a whole plethora of people working on some aspect of Vredefort. And what is badly needed is some kind of overview, coordination, and hopefully some kind of collaboration so that people know what other people are doing and so on. So the main kind of areas of interest have been obviously in the geoheritage of the Vredefort Dome, in the actual development of the World Heritage Site and what the status is. It's been a bit of a stop-go situation. Also, the possibility of a geopark at Vredefort and what's happening with the geopark. And of course, bringing in the landowners and the tour guides who have been involved to greater or lesser extents in the Vredefort situation. So there are all sorts of things happening, and people who are interested in maybe putting up signage at various sites of interest around Vredefort. Which are the preferred sites and why, and do they fit in with what other people are thinking, or are they independent, etc. So there are all kinds of things. And then, of course, there's the whole educational aspect of Vredefort, both from a pre-university, if you like, level, the school level, and of course the post-school level, university level, research that's ongoing, etc. And there are a number of initiatives that have already taken off regarding education, which is very heartening to see, with people like Roger and Barry Bryant and so on. So this is the kind of thing that we hope to get going. One of the things we haven't talked too much about as yet, and we had lined up, was the whole question of tourism. And so what we have today is are two people who have been involved in tourism, Jeff Mabunda from Northwest Tourism, and Jeff, in fact, is part of the Tourism Development Board. So he will speak first, and we thank him for joining us because he has another engagement, I believe. So Jeff, if you have to leave that, we understand. But we would certainly, I'm sure there will be quite a few questions for you. So we would like to hear from Jeff on that score. And then we would like to hear, and thank you for participating, Roland Vorwerk, and he's from the Department of Tourism, Fisheries, Forestry and the Environment. So he will talk on Vredefort and how Vredefort fits into the whole concept of the World Heritage Sites of South Africa, of which there are 10. Vredefort is one of them. And most of them have some kind of geoheritage or geological link. And we would like to hear what Roland's ideas are in marketing this, this concept of geotourism in particular. So with no further ado then, I would like to call on Jeff to give us his presentation. So Jeff, thanks.
Jeff, do you want to share your screen?
Yes, please.
You should be, I've made you a co-host, I think, so you should be able to share it. There should be a green button at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, I think I touched something wrong here. Okay, thank you so much. I'm here. I can be able to share the screen with you.
Nothing's happening yet.
Nothing's happening that side.
No, hold on, let me. Yeah, you are. Okay, now it's coming.
Thank you so much.
Got it. Just needs to be put into presentation mode and you're off and away.
Yeah, then we should be on the way. Yes, I hope you see it very clearly now.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much, Mr. Felune, I call you Prof, and all the participants. Bear with me, you might hear some noise in the background. I'm actually at the shopping mall outside Bethlehem in the Free State. So let me quickly take you through the presentation. My name is Jeff Mabunda. I work for the Northwest Tourism Board, and the Northwest Tourism Board is an entity of the Northwest Department of Economic Development, Environment, Conservation, and Tourism. And we were established by the Tourism Act of 2014 nationally, and by the Northwest Tourism Act of 2015. We are basically the tourism marketing authority in the province, but we also deal with tourism development. That was just the background. Now, our interest in the Vredefort Dome is that Vredefort Dome, though we share it with the Free State, some of the geologists and some of the experts, you say, 60% of the Vredefort Dome is in the Northwest. I don't want to get into that, but it is one of our main tourist attractions or icons in the province, one of the 8. So that becomes our interest. And the Vredefort Dome offers for the Northwest an adventure experience to the tourist market, and also the heritage experience, and also some educational aspect of it attracts the market to the province. The geologists, you do your researches and all that. So that also contributes to the significance of the Vredefort Dome to us as the tourism authority in the Northwest province. But besides that, there are also some tourist activities that happen in the dome, like the camping, the hiking, cycling, rock climbing, canoeing, water rafting, etc. So that becomes the interest for us as the tourism authority. And when we look at the tourism profile of the Vredefort Dome, I'm giving you the approximate figures in terms of the tourism performance under normal circumstances, taking out the COVID-19 impact. We, on average, the Vredefort Dome receives about 100,000 of the tourist market per annum. That is on the average. It could be a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the circumstances. And also when we look at the consumption rate, in other words, we take Vredefort Dome as the icon compared to other 7 icons in the province. The percentage share of its consumption rate is about 12%. And the market segment that usually consumes the Vredefort Dome is basically your adventure market, coupled with a little bit of the people who come for business in different conference centers, and mainly those who come for leisure. But the big chunk of it is the adventure market. Now, in terms of the revenue, when we try to quantify how much the Vredefort Dome, the northwest part of it generates per annum, it's on the average of about 250 million. But we also look at the growth potential that we can be able to grow the tourist volumes from 100,000 per annum. We can double it basically to make it about 200,000 per annum. Now, our interest as the tourism authority of the Northwest province is in the following. Our main aim is to get the people to visit the dome for whatever reason, for whatever purpose. What we are interested in is to see the tourist market increasing in the Vredefort Dome because of its geological significance. So in other words, we use its geological significance to increase the tourist volumes into the dome. And I know the environmentalists will caution me on the aspects of overcrowding and negative impact on the environment. That we'll discuss as we go. But secondly, we are interested in getting people to spend their money in the area. The Vredefort Dome, the dome itself, and the surrounding areas. And we would love to do that by creating more products and experiences within the dome itself. And also, we're interested in seeing the tourism economy of the area growing, which will then result in benefiting the people in the area. And we would love to use the tourism development initiatives to grow the tourism economy in the area. Now, as we look at our interest, we also picked up currently what I would call the missing link. The missing link in the area currently is that it is not tangible. We are selling the dome that is not tangible. So it makes it be difficult to promote or to sell it to the tourist market, because I remember the first time when I visited the dome some years back, I spoke to the tourist guide. I said to him, now take me to the dome. I want to see the dome. And his reply to me was, you are already in the dome. And I asked myself, am I in the dome? I don't see the dome. So that tangibility is a bit missing in the dome. Usually the tourist market would love to see this, what you see on the screen, when they visit the dome. This is what they would like to see, but this is what they see. Now, that's what I mean by that missing link, the expectation versus the experience. The expectation is this, but the experience currently is this. Now, as government, we then looked at the previous initiatives undertaken by government. Government built the interpretation center on the Free State part of the dome, basically where the meteorite is believed to have struck on the ground. But we know, I think most of us know the status of the interpretation center currently as we speak. It's not functional, it's not usable. Whatever the condition is, I think we know, but the bottom line is it's currently not usable. So we are not using it, it's just standing there. And then we looked at the current plans. What current plans does the state or the government have, or current initiatives? And currently, we do not have any tangible plans in place. What we are busy with now is we are getting both the Free State government and the Northwest government to come together and share the development plans, tourism development plans, and other development plans of the Vredefort Dome. But that is still on the talk stage where we are engaging, how can we approach this, but there's no current plan tourism-wise, especially from the Northwest province, that I can share with you currently. But then we pledge to this group today on this platform that we pledge to support any tourism development initiatives that will take place within the dome. So as government will be supporting that. And also in our support, we pledge that we'll respect all the ecological and environmental regulations that are applicable within the dome. So in other words, whatever tourism development initiative that will be supporting or initiating will be guided by the regulations of environment and ecology and other relevant regulations within the dome. Now, as I conclude, the private sector came up with the initiative of developing the planetarium and the interpretation center on the northwest side. So that is the initiative by the private sector. And as the state or the public sector or government, we support such initiatives, but we are not running such initiatives because they are run by the private sector. Our role then is to come to provide support, whatever kind of support that is expected from government, that will be our support. Now, in conclusion, we pledge to support all the initiatives either by this group or by any other state or organ of state or by any other private sector. So we are interested in tourism development within the dome. I thank you so much. I think I will be able to take questions because my presentation was very short, but thank you so much. Let me hand back to you.
Richard, do you want to handle the questions or comments?
Yeah, yes, I will. And okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff. That is an excellent overview of the status, and it sort of indicates a huge number of issues that can be addressed and questions that can be asked. But thank you for your interest and also, sharing all of that with us. Very, very appreciated. Now, I'm sure Jeff, you've got a time constraint, so maybe we can ask you a couple of questions now, and then you can leave later. I'm not sure how you see it. Is that okay, Jeff?
Yes, I think let's take questions and comments now,
Okay.
so that when I leave, I shall have answered questions here.
Yeah. Could I perhaps kick off just very briefly? You didn't mention the Geopark concept at all. Has that been taken into account, and what do you think about it, etc.? And has it been discussed? Because we know that people like Johan Hotting and Uli are looking at that possibility with UNESCO as part of the World Heritage Site. So have you got any comment there on that score?
Thank you once more, Richard. Yes, I have not directly had an engagement with the initiators of the Geopark, but as an initiative, it is of interest to us, and we will be much interested to support it and to become part of it. But currently, I have never had a formal engagement in that regard. I just picked it up from somewhere, and it is to our interest, yes. And I'll await the formal engagement in that regard, but I know about it. Thanks.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's really good that you will support it, because there are a lot of the activities that you mentioned fit in pretty well with the Geopark. All these hiking and other kind of activities are parts of geoparks all over the world, and of course getting the local communities involved as well, maybe as guides, etc., etc. So I think there is a lot of scope in that area, which I'm sure people can talk about. But I don't want to hog the floor with the other questions, but does anyone else would like to ask a question of Jeff?
Yeah,
Richard,
I would. Jeff, I just wanted to ask you, that sand road, what I understand is the Koppies Kraal Road to Ventus Kruin, the tarring of that road. What I know, and I don't know if it falls within your jurisdiction, but I reckon that's one of the key aspects to make that area accessible in the northwest, to tar that section of road. I believe it's about 15 kilometers or so.
Thanks, Barry. It is not directly under my jurisdiction. What we do is when we have a development initiative in the dome, we just take all the aspects into consideration. My influence in this regard is to engage the relevant department, and through my influence, then we can get it done. We support it, but it's not directly under my jurisdiction currently.
Okay, thanks.
Richard, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Hi, Jeff. Roger Gibson here. You mentioned that there are talks about the interpretation center near Vredefort between the two provinces. Have you actually been into the interpretation center? And the reason I'm asking is it goes to the issue of the sense of tangibility for visitors, because as part of the team that designed exhibits that were supposed to go in there, we actually put together a 2 meter square, 2 by 2 meter relief model of the dome that's been locked away there for the last 10, 11 years. It was never painted up or labeled, but the model is there with the case, the glass case that it was supposed to go into, as well as several other models of the dome, along with some audiovisual equipment, etc. And my question really is, perhaps these things should be liberated. I realize it's on the Free State side, you're the Northwest side, and so on. But if they could be brought out into the open, it might just be a fairly major step forward with regard to getting information out to people and for them to see that something's being done.
Thanks, Roger. Yes, I've been to the Interpretation Center. I've been taken on a tour several times, but I haven't seen that. What we will do is, because we have started talks with the Free State counterparts, we will just continue with the talks. And I think we're on the right track. What we will need, though, is we will then need you, people who designed and other experts, to guide us in this regard. But the talks have started. And since we have started the talks, I think we are positive about it, and we should be on the right direction. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Richard. Hi, Jeff. I have a question. It's Alan Roxton-Wiggle. Jeff, we knew each other when I was CEO of the N12 Treasure Route. Hi, nice to chat to you again, and thanks for a wonderful presentation. Jeff, my two questions are, we have developed sort of an overview body to help market and develop tourism and conservation of geoheritage in Southern Africa. We are called Geoheritage Destination Africa. We have a strong interest in all the geoheritage products that are coming out of South Africa and that are starting to develop. And our longer term objective would be to start marketing and assist with the development of product that is tourism related. So how would an organization like ours, which is to become, it's being registered as a non-profit company, how would we initiate engagements with you in terms of Vredefort Dome and a broader overview link up to international and national tourism in geoheritage? In other words, how do we engage with you?
Thanks, Alan, and good to meet again with you this time. Thank you so much. That is a good body that you have initiated. We believe in partnership in tourism, that we thrive in partnership. We are easy to access. I think you should be having my contact. What we need to do is we should meet as both the tourism board and other role players together with your body. And I think it's a very wonderful initiative that we have done, and congratulations and thank you so much. That will help us to move forward in terms of partnerships. It makes our way and our work even easier because there's a body that is existent already. So we don't have to speak to individuals all the time. But that is the step in the right direction, Alan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. My second question, you almost half answered it. Northwest versus Free State. From my experiences on the N12, when we worked so hard to try and get that info center up with Roger Gibson and with Free State and Northwest, there are so many complexities there. However, that's not my question. My question is, how far are you with Northwest and Free State in terms of looking at the Vredefort Dome as a whole body? And when we as Geoheritage Destination Africa engage with you, can we actually have a look at that particular progress that you've made with the Free State? We will then feed back to our communities where we are on that. So
Thanks, Alan.
yeah. So
Okay.
no, that's
Are
fine.
you still speaking? Sorry for that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I will leave you to answer.
Is it me to talk?
It's you
Sorry,
to talk,
Jeff.
I think, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Alan, once more. We unfortunately we started our talks and working together with Free State in May 2019. Then the following year, then we're hit by COVID and the lockdowns. And since then, most of the programs and initiatives have been put on hold, but we are now reviving the talks with the Free State. So far, there isn't much progress that has been made except the formalization of the working relations with the Free State. But we haven't moved much so far because we're disrupted by the lockdowns. But we're looking forward to reviving the engagements and the working relations. Then we should be able to involve other stakeholders, including the private sector, on this matter. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jeff. That answers the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Pretty useful comments that have been made there. Anyone else would like to comment at this stage? No one has mentioned what is happening with the World Heritage Site and perhaps the Geopark concept and how this would fit in at the moment. Maybe Uli could comment on the Geopark and how he sees this. There seems to be quite a bit of synergy between a Geopark and what Jeff outlined.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of potential synergy. At the moment, I'm just listening to learn about all the role players here, but I think we will get in touch with all the people. And from my side, geoparks are not only geological sites, but UNESCO also said that it's concentrating on the development, on the economic development, on social development. So I think it fits very well with the concept of what you're doing now.
Yeah, thanks for that. Can I just mention here, and you may be able to help on this one, Uli, the Geological Society and other groupings have looked at the possibilities of developing geoparks, but have found that the regulations, etc., have been pretty onerous, and therefore people have shied away from it to some extent. But what I gathered from you and what Johan was doing was that UNESCO has shown interest in developing the Vredefort area as a geopark. Is that correct? And are they prepared to help us get going without necessarily having to get through all these hurdles of regulations to establish a geopark?
UNESCO is strongly interested in establishing geoparks in Africa. So as part of this, we applied last year, but they are only supporting geoparks that are already geoparks in the way of becoming UNESCO global geoparks, which is a higher level than the National Geopark. But UNESCO is willing to support us. Of course, there are formal regulations which we must meet anyway, but the first step would be to become a national geopark, and then we can apply for a UNESCO geopark. But you remember that Marga Pacak, who has now retired, and her successor, they are also willing to support us on this way. But the hurdles are there, of course.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. So we've got to do it step by step, obviously.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Richard?
Yes.
May I ask Uli a question?
Yeah.
Uli, at this stage, there's no such thing as a national or a provincial geopark. Nobody has that on their radar. So that is a question in itself. How do we go to UNESCO with a national geopark when it's not even recognized or even known locally?
Yeah. That's right. The first step must be to establish a national geopark. But that means we need to have a body, and we need to have the recognition as a national geopark by the state of South Africa. And then we can apply for a UNESCO geopark. So that's just step by step.
Who would look after the National Geopark? If UNESCO wouldn't be involved or I'm not quite clear on how it would be managed.
I think we will need to establish a governing body for the geopark. And this could be the basis for the governing body for the UNESCO geopark. And then this body, and it can be this group or part of this group, must apply for a national geopark, and that would be the first step.
Okay, so it's obviously quite a complicated thing to negotiate through, but if you're prepared to take it on, which I think you are, you and your group, that'd be excellent, you know, because some people from the Geological Society and others have found it very difficult and have more or less given up, you know. So if you could help to develop this side, come up with some ideas and where you need help, that could be pretty useful, Uli.
That's also the reason why we established the two projects of our students. And in Germany, we have several geoparks. So the one geopark where Ireland belongs to is already a UNESCO geopark, and they have a smaller impact crater. And the other one, the Rees, is at present a national geopark, and they are applying to become a UNESCO geopark. And the Rees is also a geopark based on an impact crater. And both geoparks and both CEOs of the geoparks have said that they are going to support us. So I think this can be a good basis, but we need to collaborate with the local authorities, with all of you here in this group, and of course also with the South African Geological Society. So it must be local, it must be geological, and we also need to implement these aspects of sustainability, which is a focus of the UNESCO. But let's do it step by step.
Thanks for those comments, because you'll get support from us, the Geological Society and the Tourist Destination Group.
Thanks.
Are there other questions? Jeff, are you still there? I think Jeff might have left.
I'm still here.
Oh, Jeff, you're still there. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Do you have to leave, or are you okay still?
Yeah. Let me ask you to repeat the question.
No, I just wondered. You mentioned time problem. That's why we gave questions to you first. And do you have to leave now, or can you still stay on?
I would love to be excused. And I see the question on the from Alan here. How does the geo community effectively engage with Northwest tourism? Can geoheritage destination? Okay, I think I answered this. Our lines are open. I think you have my contact. The first thing I would request, Alan, is that perhaps let's organize a formal meeting. Then out of that, we can take quite a number of questions and input forward. That will assist, but we are available to engage at any time.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Okay, so Jeff, thanks once again for all your trouble, your input, and your excellent presentation. And we'll certainly be in contact and be working with you. So thank you once again, Jeff.
Thank you so much. I've got to go now.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so now I think it's an opportune time to hear what Roland Vorwerk has got to say about World Heritage Sites and how he sees Vredefort fitting in, and how the marketing of these World Heritage Sites is done, and particularly looking at the geotourism potential. So I'll hand over to Roland.
Thanks very much for that, Richard, and greetings to the colleagues on the call. And thank you very much for the opportunity for making a presentation. My name is Roland Vorwerk, and I work in the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. Just a small correction, tourism is not in this. So we obviously work very closely with our colleagues in the department, the National Department of Tourism. My area of work in particular is in the branch biodiversity and conservation. And there are a number of directorates within that branch that have relevance to this. The one is our directorate on multilateral programs, where the World Heritage Site work is coordinated from. And then the other is a Trans-Frontier Conservation Areas directorate. And when I point out the map, I'll be able to just quickly show where the cross-section is and how strong the overlap is between the 10 World Heritage Sites in South Africa and our 6 Trans-Frontier Conservation Areas. Obviously, that's not of relevance specifically to Vredefort. So you will all be familiar with the 10 World Heritage Sites that are currently inscribed in South Africa, having started with Isimangaliso back in 1999, and the most recent site being inscribed in 2008, that being the Barberton and Makondra Mountains, which obviously is of also a particular interest for you. In terms of the TFCAs, the Trans-Frontier Conservation Areas in Southern Africa, this is a map that just quickly indicates those. And what we find across the region also is that there is a strong overlap of World Heritage Sites in the Trans-Frontier Conservation Areas. And there's a specific piece of work that we've been doing in terms of developing tourism in the Trans-Frontier Conservation Areas from a marketing point of view under the Boundless Southern Africa banner. In terms of tourism itself, the Department of Tourism has established a tourism sector recovery plan, which was released earlier this year. And this aims to help the sector recover its 2019 output and employment levels by 2023. And so this is a detailed program that has been developed. I will be sharing this presentation in a PDF format with Richard for further circulation to all the colleagues on this call. And it's within this context that we have been working on a campaign to try and increase the collaboration between the 10 World Heritage Sites to, as a collective, raise the profile of tourism to World Heritage Sites. And that's briefly what I'm wanting to just highlight to you today, and to see where the areas of collaboration may be. So the campaign goal and the objectives is that we will be focusing, or we aim to focus very strongly on profiling the 10 World Heritage Sites. And you don't be too worried about the Trans-Frontier Conservation Area add-on. It's just that where there are World Heritage Sites that then also have a frontier conservation area angle that will then be an added angle that we will build into the campaign. But the main focus is to profile the 10 World Heritage Sites. And what we would really be proposing here is that we create an effective partnership between key stakeholders across the country to increase the tourism profile of these 10 World Heritage Sites, and how these World Heritage Sites are building back better in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then from a tour operator point of view, which is also focusing on the higher value tourist, if you like, we would want to increase the number of tourism itineraries of tour operators that include an increasing and a more diverse World Tourism Heritage Site offering. So many tour operators, for example, based in Gauteng, probably have never been to Vredefort, and even less so have thought of including a tourism experience that really unpacks the unique experience and proposition of the Vredefort Dome. So we would also then be looking at reigniting and growing the value of domestic and regional tourism, considering that in all the projections, that is the best place to start to increase the interest and knowledge of the unique aspects of the World Heritage Site in terms of the outstanding universal values. And then to have a concerted program to increase the number of travel media articles that are published and shared on various platforms, both in print and other media such as social media. So what we are proposing is that we work together to run a campaign in 2022, where we start by covering the 10 World Heritage Sites in a period of 10 consecutive weeks. And we basically do a virtual and a physical tour of the World Heritage Sites in South Africa. And the idea there would be that each World Heritage Sites gets a focus week, and that in that focus week, the local tourism players create a series of events or seminars that really help to profile and outline the unique tourism experience in that TFCA, and that we go from week to week and do pretty much a virtual tour, if you like. So this would then mean that one could host media tours, that one could create an events calendar during that week, but also the focus is that we have this in the first quarter of 2022, but that we have an events calendar for each of the World Heritage Sites for the entire year of 2022, so that we don't just create a huge effort at the beginning of the year and then don't have a sustained rollout and benefit of the increased experience. So, we don't want to just create awareness for awareness creation's sake. We're wanting to be able to create awareness so that we can actually see an increase in high value tours and tourism, be that from a domestic or a regional or an international point of view, that really celebrates the specific, unique and outstanding value that is synonymous and which is the reason for the World Heritage Site. So we're very keen to focus on the tourism experience that really has given rise to the inscription of the World Heritage Site in the first place. We then have also been having very detailed discussions with SATSA, which is the South African Tourism Services Association, and their membership is covering more than 70% of all tour operators that organize tours for inbound tourism. And we would be keen to be working with them on, and stakeholders on the ground, on hosting tour operators in the various World Heritage sites, so that they are also able to become better familiarized with the experience and also how to package the experience in various itineraries, be it specialist itineraries. And this might also then be a good opportunity to increase the profile of geoheritage tourism more broadly than just Vredefort itself. So there's, I see a lot of scope in that regard. So then we were thinking then also during lockdown, a number of tourism stakeholders got very creative in hosting online seminars. I think all of us are pretty zoomed out, but it is still a very cost-effective platform if there are compelling topics. And we were looking at hosting a weekly podcast or online seminar along the theme of World Heritage Wednesdays. This is just a working title, and that one would work to have a panel of tourism experience providers that are able to, and this would be focused again to both domestic and international tour operators, inbound and outbound from international source markets, to be able to really unpack then how, like a bit of a how-to guide on how to package Vredefort for various types of tourists and what the full experience is. Another idea that came up was to host a mini Indaba at each site. So for those of you that are in the tourism space, May in every year was a big gathering in Durban for the tourism Indaba. And one of the ideas was, as a potential during the allocated week in the 10-week period, that there would be a specific focus and possibly a mini Indaba at each site, so that one could compel tour operators to come down over a weekend or a Friday, Saturday combo and have a whole lot of the tourism product exhibit and be able to engage with the trade. And then the SATSA team has launched a bit more than a month ago, at the Cradle of Humankind, their Let's Go campaign. And this is really a campaign to try and stimulate and invigorate domestic tourists and also to stimulate the tour operator members to get going again. We would also then look at engaging South African tourism. They have got a campaign called the Short Left campaign, which is really focused on activating the domestic market again. And they've also got an approach to have a call to action, which includes packages and deals, so that people are more aware of the tourism package. So that in brief is some of the thinking. I've presented this to the World Heritage Site Forum a few weeks back. We've started engaging with the marketing managers of the different World Heritage sites so that we can get their input. There is very strong interest from sandparks through the sites that they manage, like Mabunda and Geoheritage. And we've had some very good feedback at a preliminary level. And we'd want to try and finalize the engagements during the month of November, so that we are all quite clear about how this campaign could roll out in the new year, and so that we can really get cracking, and hopefully by mid-January kickstart the 10 consecutive weeks of profiling, but also to have a very interesting events calendar collated from all the events that could be planned in each of the World Heritage sites, both focusing on the specific week that is allocated to a specific World Heritage site, as well as to an events program that would run over an entire 12-month period. So that in brief is a mouthful from me, and I look forward to further questions and comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Roland, for that very, very interesting overview and initiative, which I'm sure many people will relate to. And yeah, I'm sure people would like to get involved with it. So maybe we can have some questions for Roland and comments, please.
Hi, Roland. Thanks very much. We're having a Geoheritage conference in April next year, and Geologist Day is the 3rd of April. Could we target a day like that for something like a mini Indaba?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds fantastic. This is very collaborative, and this is then also very much the idea that we had, is that we have a focused session for 10 consecutive weeks, but that we also open it up for the whole year, and realize that there are annual events calendars and annual activities that are of interest. So we don't want to put a lot of effort into just 10 days, 10 weeks of activity, and then kind of like discount the rest of the year. And where there are these opportunities to mobilize around target market interest, international days and activities, I think that's a very good strategy.
Okay, now we'd like to be in touch with you on the Geoheritage conference next year. Thanks very much.
Any other comments and questions on this one? I think that the geological or the geoheritage aspect of all the World Heritage sites in South Africa is pretty important, and can really be built on as quite a major adjunct to the existing situation. A place like Mabunda, for example, is all based on the geology of the area, which are these preserved mesas on which the civilization thrived. So it's a big story, and makes a lot of interesting viewing. And the same applies to other geoparks. Barberton is a good example as well of major geological significance, which could be worked on, and the others to maybe somewhat lesser degrees, but nevertheless very interesting from a geological point of view. So this could fit in very well with your campaign, Roland, which I think is an excellent one. Are there other comments?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, Roland. It's Alan Roxton from Geoheritage Africa. How much knowledge is there within your working groups of geoparks and of geoheritage as a potential tourism add-on, or even as a standalone niche product? Does your group, your various groupings have any significant understanding of geoheritage and what it may bring to tourism?
Yeah, thanks for that. And I also wanted to just pick up on that from the previous discussion. So I think we really are a lot more generalist than that. And this is a great opportunity to to work together, especially in targeting, for example, the tour operators. I think people are quite interested in niche markets. There's a lot of shaking up of the sector, and I think there's a huge value. One could work with some tour operators to create a 2 or 3 week tour of the region that has a very specific geoheritage theme to it. So I think that's very much the trend that we'll see happening, especially in international tourism flows. And then with regards to the issue around, so I totally welcome being able to work with you and the team, and to see also then how we can strengthen the aspects across the multiple sites that have a very strong resonance and relevance in the geoheritage space. With regard to the Geopark, I think that there would be a very useful conversation to have with the Director of Multilateral Arrangements or Engagements, Ms. Tumeka Nhloko. Some of you may have worked with her before or been in engagements or discussions with her, but she is the focal point for UNESCO in our department, and I think that through both her and the work that we do with the African World Heritage Fund, there really would be, I think, a very solid scope to see what support can be provided from the department's point of view to develop, let's call it a roadmap or some kind of a strategy to outline the key steps that are needing to be taken in order for Vredefort to be recognized and further developed and expanded as a geopark.
Thank you very much, Roland. That was a really super answer. And I think it's what we all wanted to hear. So the next step would be that Richard and I and probably Uli would have a look to try and arrange a meeting with both yourselves and your department, and probably with the lady, I'm afraid I missed her name, that is basically overseeing it. So we could actually give a perspective on what geoheritage is, what geoparks are, and then possibly actually explain just how strongly overlapping your transfrontier parks are and your World Heritage sites are with geoheritage. So one of the issues we've had over the period of time is, now we're going to have another, we're going to have, a Geoheritage International Geoheritage Park. It is an issue. We've already got national parks. We've got World Heritage sites. We've got international conservation sites, cross-border conservation sites. Now we're going to add geoparks to it. So these are all matters that have come up, plenty discussions within our groups, but it hasn't gone outside of that too much. We have discussed with sandparks, and sandparks don't want to touch geoparks. They've got their area of responsibility. So very much from Uli, Richard, myself, and many of the other people, Craig, Chris, all of us have questions and some answers, but we would very much like to engage with you. So obviously my request is that Richard can set up a meeting for us to engage, and then we can move from there.
Yeah, perfect. We're based in Pretoria, so I think it would be great to then have a in-person working session, if possible, still before the end of the year. Silly season starts in the department about mid-December, so if that works, we can look at that and then put together a bit of a roadmap and an area of where the points of collaboration are.
Thank you for that, Alan and Roland. Yeah, can I just ask you about the geoparks? I think geoparks cover a nice wide variety of topics, so very, very multidisciplinary, so that would fit in very well. Also, I believe that certain UNESCO World Heritage sites incorporate geoparks or vice versa, but do you know how that works, and is it happening elsewhere, Roland? Because I think that's quite an important point. So people might argue in Vredefort, if you've got a World Heritage site, why have a geopark? So the one might help the other in actual fact, in the whole business of tourism and marketing. Do you have any comments on this and how that might work?
Yeah, I mean, this is a totally new field for me. So what I would even suggest is that we have maybe just an online working session sometime in the next few weeks in preparation then for an in-person meeting with my colleague Tumeka, just so that we've then got a clearer value proposition to put to her. And I'm happy to have something like that set up at a convenient time for those that are interested.
Thank you for that, Roland. Yeah. Are there any other questions for Roland and comments? I mean, there's so many issues, people are interested, for example, in setting up sites and panoramic views similar to the Maconjwa Trail, which you presumably have heard of, have you, Roland? It's been very successful. So if one can think of doing something similar in Vredefort, for example, it would serve both the Geopark and the World Heritage Site. But someone has got to decide where are the important sites and where can they be built, and what about the landowners, etc. So all of these questions come into it, which make life a little bit difficult, but it's important, I think, that we discuss, and that's why we brought all these different interest groups together. And you've added a significant amount of information, which is highly useful for what we are doing. I don't know if Uli can comment on that Geopark and the World Heritage Site and how the two might work together.
Thanks. So I have no big experience since we have a World Heritage Site, the Roman border, which is quite different from geology, but I will bring this to the group of the Geopark leaders to see and to get feedback what their experience with the relation between geoparks and World Heritage Sites is. So hopefully with our next meeting, I can give you some feedback.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just also a note. They're two different, broad streams. The one obviously is, like a tourism development framework, which is a longer term, planning process. So that's something that I know also some colleagues in the Department of Tourism would be doing as a matter of course. So I'll also, in preparation for our meeting, just sound out the destination planning teams as to what is planned potentially. And then there's the shorter term work that I've mentioned here, just in terms of stimulating demand for tourism experiences off the back of what is currently in place already. So I think it's also just useful to be clear about those two parallel processes. The one is a medium to longer term planning and framework process, and the other is a shorter term activation and awareness raising process, and so my hat is on the latter primarily.
Thank you. Okay, well, I think we've had a pretty good discussion. We've had our 1 hour's worth. I'd just like to know from the audience here, what do we need to discuss further regarding Vredefort? And I know we can go on for a long time, but what are the urgent points that we could discuss as a theme for our next meeting? Or, we've covered education pretty well, and I think that that's up and running. So are there any comments from this grouping of what we should be discussing and regarding Vredefort in particular?
Richard, from myself, I think a little bit of attention to really defining the target markets that you want to get to Vredefort and how to access those markets with some sort of marketing campaign. I sometimes get the sense that we don't think enough about, as geologists, we tend to be focused on the geology and we don't think about the various complexities and the various visiting markets, the visiting people. And understanding those target markets might help a little bit.
Yeah, I think, the point from the previous talk that, we need to target the adventure market. I think that's something that we have to look at, is how do we target these guys?
Yeah. The adventure market, from what I gather, seems to be doing quite well in Vredefort, but I might be wrong. Can anyone comment on that? Barry, perhaps?
Yeah, the adventure market. Yes. Well, look, I mean, traditionally, Vredefort, that is what it's known for at the moment. Everybody I know, with regards to schools and so on, they go down mainly for the river rafting and things like that. Very, very little direct interest in the geoheritage itself. I'm one of the few people, as well as Roger from the university side, who's actually doing anything on the ground with specific reference to geology. So from my perspective, listening to Jeff Mabunda, we're back at square one, because that visitor center is a key issue that we need to try and solve before we can really get interest in the area, because we need somewhere for people to be able to go to. And that in my view is the biggest problem. And so what I've decided in my mind, Alan, myself, and Stuart the other day had a meeting regarding what we're talking about here, and we concluded we must go down to Vredefort to try and have more of a lateral thinking, a brainstorming session on how we can try and overcome this, and then of course approach Jeff Mabunda, because I don't like the thing that the talks, they've been going on for 2 years. And we still don't have a conclusion to that, to try and put something on the table that we can say, well, how about this? And this is with reference to Stephen LaRue, to actually speak to him with regard to looking at one of the venues possibly being hired out for the purpose of being used as a visitor center, and to try and get some definite feedback as to a path forward with respect to that. Because without a visitor center, I don't think you can really look at geoheritage on the ground, because there's nowhere to put out all Roger Gibson's work and the university's work. There is the quarry, and there are the quarries and so on. There is Christo's farm, but these are isolated things that are not really connected by a sound plan yet. And I think it still revolves around this visitor center as such, or some other focal point that people can go to. River rafting, they can go to Real Adventures and go and do river rafting. There's a place they can go to. But for geoheritage, there's nobody they can go to at this stage. And I work with a homeschooling community at this point, so I have run an annual camp there for the last 7 years, and but other than that, I don't know if there's anybody else doing anything in the public domain. I know from the varsities, the students go there religiously to go and do their geological practicals, but as far as general education or public interest, I don't know much about that. Just as a matter of interest, there's a in Gauteng, there's a group called Hiking Trails of Gauteng. It's got 50,000 members, and I mean that's the type of potential that lies out there. But as I say, without the infrastructure, we, I need to get, my head around that first. But okay, Richard, that's my sort of thoughts on it at this
Yeah,
stage.
thanks for that, Barry. Yeah, a lot to chew over here, eh? But we hopefully getting there. But I think you're right. The question of the center is a pretty crucial one. And the question, I thought Stonehenge might be taking off as a potential center, but it looks as though they're still considering the old center the condemned center at Vredefort as a possibility. So, and of course, Roger's displays, which are pretty excellent. So we really need to think about this business. As you say, we've talked about it for quite a while now, and no decision has been made or can be made. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe a meeting in Vredefort. We need to get the landowners involved as well. I'm not sure. So any ideas on this one? Should we wait for the center to be reestablished at Vredefort? And I think, according to Roger, the main idea there was that you had a very good idea of the circular range of mountains, which is the circular range caused by the upturned strata caused by the meteorite impact. So that's the closest you can get to looking at the Tswaing crater. Is that seen? And that's why it was. So I think about all these things. Yeah.
Richard, from the quarry at with Benny Pretorius, you've also got a fairly decent view of that collar structure as well.
Yeah.
But I think until we can get a more definite, I think the thing is to go and try and get Jeff Mabunda involved so we can at least know what the provincial governments are doing. And because they could do something you don't expect, and then it leaves us then, without definite clarity on the directions. I think to actually get these people talking so we can see what, if they are open to, for instance, agreeing on an alternative visitor center, say at Stonehenge, what would they say? What would the Free State government, provincial governments say about that? Would they be open to it? Would they be totally opposed to it? And I think that is probably the most urgent need is to actually figure out what those provincial government, we know now from Jeff Mabunda, he's very keen to get going, but now to get them to talk quickly so that I'm sure they could sit down and just discuss that and come to a conclusion, whether they want to go into sort of a public-private partnership with Stonehenge in terms of a lease agreement on one of those, if we can get Stephen to agree to that. And other than that, I don't know. I think that's the place. I've got a feeling that's where we've got to start, because listening to Jeff, I think, they haven't thrashed that out yet. And so I'm going to certainly work in that direction to try and think about.
Look, I think that's a good point that you make. It's going to take a while for anyone to decide what to do with that center, because at Vredefort, it's got to be demolished from what I gather, and it's going to cost a lot of money to build a new center again. So maybe even as an interim thing, get something going at Stonehenge. And I thought that you and Roger had discussed the idea of a educational center as well at Stonehenge, which I think would be a good idea. And an idea that really sort of resonates pretty well was shown earlier on, I think, by Jeff, where he showed an observatory. And surely a meteorite comes from outer space, and therefore the link with the stars is quite a compelling one. So it might be that astronomy might just be quite an interesting draw card as well. And I'm not sure, I think there are plans, are there, to develop an observatory at one of these sites like Stonehenge, because that could certainly be an added attraction for visitors.
Well, it's the first I hear about it. I've never heard of. I don't know. I would love to know who is proposing that. I don't know.
Well, I don't either, because Jeff just brought it up today. So I just thought this is a pretty interesting idea.
Alan, do you know about anything about that proposal for some sort of a planetarium? Have you heard about that?
Barry, Richard, if I could just a little perspective here, having worked so much with government in tourism for many, many, many years, including with Jeff Mabunda and with Free State and their little petty arguments that went on, you are going to have to understand that was in 2013 and 14 that I had the discussions with both Free State and with Jeff Mabunda Northwest at the time, and with Wits University with Roger. It's now 8 to 9 years later, and we have not moved forward on it. So what I'm going to go back to what Richard asked us. What are the other subjects that we should be running seminars on? And I'd like to make the following suggestions, and I'll give a reason. First of all, the Geopark group strategy. So that Geopark group that Uli is talking about, it would be really great if Uli or somebody in that group could give us an overview of what they are, what they propose to do, how they propose to do it. That'll give us a better understanding of what the university and the greater group that is there is going to be doing. And then that is effectively a request to understand what your strategy is going forward for the Vredefort group. That's the first thing I'd like to suggest. The second presentation that I'd like to suggest is Geoheritage versus tourism and the understanding of tourism in geoheritage. Because I can tell you what I've spoken to now, not just tens of geologists, I've spoken and geoscientists as a whole. There is no understanding of tourism. And everything that I see coming out, it makes it more and more clear. We are geoscientists. How much do we understand about tourism? We start taking random things and saying, oh, this looks like it worked that. We need a strategy. We need to find a way to communicate to both tourism and to geoscientists how the two can work together. So I think that would be the second suggestion. And for that, I would like to suggest that our Geoheritage Destination Africa does that presentation. So those are my two presentations, and those are my two suggestions. And I would suggest that within that, the questions that are coming out, will come out, are going to answer the ways in which we approach various things. Like things keep getting chucked on our table and we just randomly handle them. So many questions need to be asked. So much direction needs to be given to all of us, but we don't have strategies and we don't understand each other's strategies and we don't understand tourism at all. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Alan. Some very pertinent comments there. Yeah, it's how to resolve these problems and go forward. But yeah, your input has been pretty useful here, and as have everyone else. So I think we're getting somewhere, and we've got to keep pushing. Okay, any other comments here at this stage?
Just a quick one from me. I've left a few comments in the chat box. I need to jump onto another call, and yeah, happy to be a sounding board and to work with you guys going forward. Thank you.
Sorry, who was that?
Roland.
Okay, good. Roland, thank you very much. Yeah, and thanks everyone for tuning in, and I think we'll call it a day. So cheers everyone.
Cheers. I'll officially close the meeting, but I'll stop recording, but I'll leave it open for a few minutes until everybody signs off. There might be some chit chat.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.